Hey guys, and welcome back to Time Under Tension. We are continuing forward today in our discussion on relationships and fostering healthy relationships, primarily romantic relationships, although I think a lot of these concepts that we've talked about can be applied to various different types of relationships. I'm curious for you, Dee, how your perception of what you want in a relationship has changed over time, or has it not? Have you always wanted the same thing?
That's such a good question because it is drastically changed. And I think over this last week, it's changed even more after reading Seat of the Soul. It's a book that really challenges the five sensory person or personality and brings in this whole idea of being a multisensory individual who has a spirit and who has abilities to impact through the light that we shine, and how your intention as you go into relationships or to anything is going to immediately impact the person or the group of people you're with. And so after reading that book, from where I started to where I am now, I'll talk about where I am now since I just went on that description there. Where I'm at now is really seeking out that spiritual partnership, which is what he labels it in the book, which is it's this dynamic between you and another person where you're intentional about growing and prioritizing the growth of your spirit, prioritizing higher frequency emotions like love and compassion and kindness, gratitude, really challenging the the personality or the part of you that wants to be super reactive in its nature or function on those lower frequency energies of, anger, frustration, envy, jealousy, things like that. And the reason I talk about that in that way is because my shift was just that. I felt like, in reflection, what I've noticed about myself was relationships, romantic relationships, were either a validation tool that I use to feel known and seen. I was in romantic relationships because I thought that person was going to complete me, that I wasn't whole without another person. And also just that genuine love that I wasn't giving myself. I needed someone external to love me for me to know that I'm worthy of being loved. So I know all of that now. In the beginning, it was like, you know, if I'm alone, what's the point, kind of a thing. So as I progressed and journeyed, I definitely had a ton of anger. I had a ton of jealousy. I had a lot of insecurity issues. I was definitely frustrated and felt that like need to control in a way. That led to very unfruitful and really hard situations in my romantic relationships, as after COVID happened for me, where I did spend that 10 to 11-month period alone. I was able to realize that I'm whole on my own, and that the very deeply significant reason to have a romantic partner is because that person's just going to make this life more colorful. Like, you're whole as yourself, but you get to do this journey of your life with another person who's supporting you, who's showing you compassion and love and being a mirror for you to be able to understand the areas that you can't see you need to grow in because you're in the wrestling match yourself. So having a romantic partner, and we've talked about it, I even struggled a little bit with you in the beginning, like thinking that you were going to be this thing that helped me become whole, when really it was like, yeah, that was what you were doing, but it was because you were showing me how I'm whole. You were a mirror to me and doing this spiritual journey right next to me, always choosing to prioritize your personal growth and your personal journey and making sure you're holding me accountable to this area that I can grow in.
That's great. And I think that when we stop putting that pressure on another person to fulfill us, we can start to give them grace and come back to appreciating them for what's unique about them, while also taking a healthy level of responsibility for the things we need to change. But with that responsibility, I think instead of thinking about it like something we carry, to me, it's something that's empowering. Because if I'm expecting you to make my day great and you wake up and you're in a mood, and now I'm like, what? My day is gonna suck now because I'm deciding that you are in charge of making my day great, and now I'm gonna develop this resentment and frustration because, well, my day could have been great, but you woke up with an attitude and blah blah blah. But like when you see that person as separate and understand that it's a push and pull, and there's gonna be days where I'm high and you're low and I'm high, and we give that opportunity to do this life together. So when one or the other of us has a little bit more light to give, we can lean into that and help lift that other person up and encourage them and empower them by reminding them of what's inside of them, but not put so much pressure on them to be the one that dictates the quality of your life. Now, obviously, and I always want to disclaim this, and I think I've done it in every episode, there are extreme situations where your partner is unkind, unloving, hurtful, like mean. There are situations where people are like actually in abusive relationships. And I think it's really important to come back to that idea of healthy level of responsibility. If your partner is abusing you, when I'm saying that you are responsible for the quality of your life and your day, your responsibility in that is to know where the boundary is and when it's time to walk away and to take advantage of the resources that you have. It's not to stay in it and try to keep your head up, even though it's obviously like toxic and lacks that necessary love that provides safety within a relationship. So, all the things we're talking about are within the context of a safe relationship where, yeah, there's disagreements and there's frustrations, and you're not always going to be on the same page. But in general, both of you want a healthy and loving relationship, even if that's not the circumstance currently.
Yeah, do you want to share a little bit about how you've transformed? I love that disclaimer. I just think, having that awareness is so crucial to identify. So I think that's great. But I am curious, what has your shift been like for you?
Yeah, so in my life, I have this characteristic of I'm good at fresh starts. Other than coaching, I have not had a job for more than, I think, 2 years straight, like the same job. I've changed jobs in the last 5 years. I've moved several times. I really like connecting with new friends, but I don't do a very good job of investing in old friendships or continuing to show up at groups that I commit to, or staying in the same place for a long time, or committing to a job for more than a few years, because I like the fresh start, but I start to feel really threatened when the next level of the relationship requires a deeper change or a deeper level of vulnerability on my part. And so in my past with relationships, I've always had a wall up in regards to my vulnerability, and have kind of seen myself as I'll be what that person needs me to be. But then I develop some resentment under the surface because I'm not using my voice and I'm not growing on my own path. I'm more trying to be what they need. And then eventually I get kind of frustrated with that. And I'll just like blow up or leave or cheat or whatever that looks like, because I'm so frustrated. And in my mind, I can justify why that person's no longer good for me. So I'm putting a lot of pressure on them to be what I need, but I'm not communicating and I'm not using my voice. And with you, I think in a way it started like this, in that I saw you as like this perfect thing. Like I loved everything about you and I was so like drawn into all of your ways and all the things that you do. And to be honest, I still feel like that, but it took a few phases of getting really irritated by the way that you are, and the way that we can be together when neither of us is being trusting or feels safe. And I found myself starting to use those things as evidence as why we weren't supposed to be together. Like, oh, well, every time, you get angry, like I shut down and I feel super unsafe, and like it's your fault because you get angry. And I wasn't taking responsibility for the fact that like I wasn't communicating that I was upset, or I wasn't communicating that I was having trouble using my voice or even saying what I needed. And then that resentment would build, and I would just find myself getting really frustrated and thinking like, oh, well, this just can't be right. And I think it's taken a lot of conversations, but I do feel like there's been a few pivotal ones where we've just like reestablished that we are separate people and have separate journeys, and like we have our own paths with God, and we can support each other and hold each other accountable, but it's also not up to either of us to tell each other what to do next or how to do it. And I think there's just been a few times when we've kind of like established a new level of depth in our relationship because we've really laid down a foundation of respect for us as separate people. But also, then once we are separate and have clear boundaries, how we can combine our lights to be this like brighter influence when we do take appropriate responsibility.
Yeah. I think this is a great opportunity to segue into, if you really do want your love to deepen and your relationship to grow continually, there's going to be a point in time where you're very familiar with each other. You feel like you really do know the person that you're with. And at that point comes this choice. And us talking about this the other day, it really opened my eyes to just how important it is to work through that period of time where you're like, well, this is coming up and this must be a sign that I'm, shouldn't be with this person anymore. And you're starting to get irritated by certain things or whatever. It's like back to that intention that I talked about in the beginning. If you're intentional about being open with your communication all of the time, then as you start to get deeper and deeper into a relationship, the problems or the things that come up, the beach balls that are presented, are going to be beach balls that are like much bigger than the other little beach balls that we talked about in previous episodes. Conversations around, all right, well, both of us are feeling a little like we don't have this like excitement as often, or I do feel like I know you, and so I've kind of let go of that. I'm excited to wake up and get to know you kind of mentality, almost like we talked about the other day. And it's like that presents this opportunity to say, are we choosing each other? Like, do we choose each other for this life? Like, are we truly in this from a committed standpoint? Because if so, then we're gonna have to talk about, yeah, like I feel like I need a little bit more adventure in my life. I feel like we kind of do the same thing all the time. We're when we get home from work, we're eating dinner and we're watching TV and going to bed, and it's kind of just not really fulfilling me anymore, kind of a thing. And having that level of trust and commitment to your partner where you can start to understand that it's not going to be this perfect world where you're in this super exciting and really really um almost like movie kind of love that they portray. That happens, and it continues to present itself. Like, you'll have those moments, and where you're like, wow, like I am just so crazy about you. It's like it is so shocking. But you're also gonna have those moments where like, yeah, we've been doing life together for over 2 years now. So certain things are like very understood. And if we're not committed to our own personal growth and then also committing to allowing the other person to be a part of your personal growth through conversation, reflection, really giving you feedback, then all of a sudden you're in your mind, you're thinking that, oh, this just might not be the person anymore. And I know, I feel like I can say that with full understanding because that's every single relationship prior to you. If I had this lack of like, I'm sure, like, I don't know, like, does this really, this isn't really aligning, and I'm not really, it's like my mind was like, must not be the right person. Need to look for another person. Like this, if this isn't working, this particular thing, then that's a sign to me that this isn't the right person. That's not true though, you know? It's like, how can we have a conversation together about this and really understand how in our own personal growth journeys and in this growth journey that we're going to go on together, what needs to change and how can we choose each other and put the beach ball outside of us again, like we keep talking about, and work through this.
And I think there's some tangible ways to help create that again. You mentioned kind of falling into a routine. We do the same things with our partner. We have the same routine each day. A lot of our conversations may be similar because we kind of start out in the same way. Like, how was your day? Good. This happened at work. Like, how was your day? Good. Like, this happened with family, whatever it is. And those things are great. It's kind of like covering your bases and just doing the grind of daily life together. But it's kind of like having a relationship with yourself. There's something about doing something new that makes you learn about yourself in a new way. Now, it can be really terrifying because you learn where your weaknesses are or things that you need to work on. But in a relationship, I think it's really crucial. But I also think it's a really great tool for recreating some of those feelings that you had initially. So when we first meet someone, we don't know them at all. And so all of our focus is entrained upon them and getting to know who they are and what they're like and what are the things they say and what's their sense of humor and what makes them smile and what are their quirks, and all of those things become extremely endearing. And then as we spend life with them, we're kind of like used to it, right? And if we're not feeling great about our partner, we're kind of over it sometimes. Like, okay, we're not even like enchanted by the way that you act anymore if we're allowing that resentment to build up. But I think that familiarity over time can be a challenge because one, those patterns of communication and behavior and reaction response can start to be repetitive. And that's why I think it's important to address things when they come up and don't just let them simmer under the surface like we talked about previously, but also make sure that you're doing things that put you in new situations so you can get that new lens on your partner again and think, what if I didn't know them? Like, I'm so engaged with what you're saying because I have no idea what you're going to say. Whereas when that familiarity starts to take over, it's like, I can almost guess what you're going to say about this. And then either I'm not going to talk to you about it or I'm not really fully listening when you're talking because I kind of have a hunch your approach or your viewpoint. And I think having that daily uh, reminder to yourself to see your partner with new eyes, but also as a couple, going out of your way to do new things. One thing that has been really cool in our relationship, I've learned for the first time, is I love doing things with you with other people because the way that you interact with other people is different than how you interact with me. And so I learn things about you and I see this cool way that you interact with people and you meet them where they're at, and you might talk about topics that you and I don't normally talk about. And it's instead of feeling like jealous that you're connecting with someone else, I see it as an opportunity to learn more about you in a way that I wouldn't have insight into normally because my personality and our patterns of communication usually bring out maybe a similar response or similar topics between us. But when we're in a situation with new people, maybe like a group setting, and someone asks you a question and I'm in the group and I can kind of see like what that conversation's like, and I learned something about you that you said, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know that at all, then that's something we can talk about later. But it also helps me open up my perspective to the fact that as much as I like to think I know everything about you, I don't. And I only know the you that is responding to me.
Yeah. What would you say are some other tangible ways for people who are watching to really understand that there is a choice in how they're viewing their partner and how they could go about maybe creating some change there or really understanding what it is that they're feeling?
Yeah. So today I was driving home and they were doing some construction on the road. There were some workers on the road, and one of them was holding up like the slow sign, and the other one was kind of like at the back of that portion of road work. And they were both like navigating and directing cars around. Now, the first guy that I saw, I had just kind of a stone face as I was driving. I was looking at him because I was making sure I was driving slow enough and like following his cues to go slow. I wanted him to know that I obviously saw him on the road. And he gave me literally the same deadpan. And my immediate reaction was like, geez, like look like you're enjoying your job. And then I realized like I'm deadpan right now. Like I have no emotion. I'm not giving this guy any energy to work off of. So then the guy at the end, I like smiled at, and he like smiled and like waved me through. Now, it could have been a personality difference. That's cool too. And that happens. And that's why you can't get too caught up on the reaction you're getting from somebody, because everyone's different. And honestly, I've realized a lot of time people don't really realize like the expressions and the energy that they're giving you. They're just trying to like express their point or be heard or listen. But with your partner, think about that power you have. Like you are a mirror, but you're also a projector for them. And so if you go up to your partner and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see you, like the energy that you're going to be getting back is going to be so much higher. But if they come home and you're like, I'm gonna sit here on my computer until you say hi to me because I said hi to you first earlier, and it's your turn to go out of your way, right? Well, the energy that they're gonna give you is probably gonna be pretty low because that's what you're giving them. And it's not about like, yeah, there's gonna be times when maybe one person needs to like step up a little bit. There's not always gonna be this equal exchange of energy. But if you are stuck in a place where you feel like, there's just so much familiarity and there's not a lot of excitement in our relationship, and there's a lot of like good, like it's comfortable, it's I'm content within it, but it's not that thrill that we had initially. Well, what did you do initially? You were so focused on your partner. They were the center of your world. You wanted nothing more than to get to know them and spend more time with them. Start to foster that again, like that excitement about seeing them, like really start acting out of it, even if you don't feel it within, like you might not have butterflies when you see them, but like you can foster up that feeling. And the more you give that, the more you're going to give it back if your partner is like invested in your relationship.
Right. What remind me of it's you can either look through the lens of is it fear and doubt in our book or love and light? Is it fear and doubt? Is that right?
Mhm.
So this was something that's in that book too. And what reminded me of that when you were talking was like, we totally have the choice of how we learn, whether it's through this lens of love and compassion, which is like wisdom, or we can learn through the lens of fear and doubt. And that to me was pivotal in how I was viewing situations that came up or struggles that we were having, or you in general, or myself in general. We're all going to have thoughts and we're all going to have challenges and circumstances and things that come up that really challenge the relationship or bring us into a place of choice and unknowing of what to do in that particular situation, that what massively changed my ability to not only show up with my high frequency energy, with my light, so I can reflect, like you're saying, bright light at you, instead of coming in all sulky and fearful and like doubtful. So I'm like not really sure if I should say anything, or like just total low hanging fruit when it comes to energy, which is then you're feeling that, you know, we are totally in the same energetic fields. If you're with your partner, you spend more time with your partner than you spend with any other person as your truest, most authentic self. Like that's who you feel safest with. That's who you're showing up as, that person that you truly are. And if you're entering into that space without intention of, I'm going to view this problem or I'm going to view this struggle with some sort of lens of love and compassion, so I can learn through that particular lens instead of trying to learn out of being fearful or jealous or frustrated. Now all of a sudden the two of us are functioning in this energy field where we're open and willing to hear each other. And we can say, okay, I know your intentions. I know you love me. I know you're not trying to do anything to hurt me or upset me. This is where I have, come to realize that I need something different. And can you work with me on that or something? It's like the problems that come up. I mean, if we want to talk about you and me, if I were to have looked through the lens of fear and doubt about our relationship, hearing you say on here, yeah, there were things that came up where I was super frustrated with you. And I was like, well, this probably means that she's not for me. If I was looking through a lens of doubt and fear, or even in my own personal journey of having some doubts, it's like if I was taking this fearful mentality towards that of like, well, what if this? And well, what if that? And well, it's probably just easier if we just don't stay together, because I'm so concerned now and I'm anxious and I'm worried. It's like it leaves us so separated and unable to connect our lights together that we're stuck in this stagnant energy. Whereas if we could have chosen, if we can choose, which I'm choosing to hear what you really said, is like, yeah, you experienced that, but you chose to work through that. And you showed up to me with conversation. This is what I need. And this is what I want to bring into the relationship. Like, can we partner together on this and really figure out how we can continue to choose each other regardless of our fear and doubt? That's just that lens of love and compassion. All of a sudden, I'm grateful for every single day you choose me. And every single day I get to see you in the morning before I go to work. It's like this, oh my gosh, like I'm just so thankful that this happened. Instead of like, oh, she's in the kitchen listening to her YouTube videos and I just want it to be quiet in here and whatever. It's like, what's your intention? Do you really want to work on the relationship? Do you really want to commit yourself to this partnership? Or are you just seeking out easy ways out so you don't have to feel vulnerable and exposed?
The thing is, there are problems. Like there are obstacles and there are challenges, and obstacles are growth opportunities. Like I heard this quote earlier this week, and it's life is just one damn thing after another. And it's really true. Like you're just going from one problem to the next problem, and it's never like, oh, I'm problem free and I finally feel good. It's like, no, you're working through something to get to the next thing that you have to work through. So we can either sit there and be frustrated at each obstacle, or we can go, awesome, next level, awesome, next level. Now, in your relationship, there's always going to be problems. And I think to a degree, we look for problems because it is like evolutionarily, if we're aware of the danger and the challenges in our environment, in theory, we're probably going to be safer because we can address those things. But we often don't address them because these situations aren't like there's a lion in my immediate environment. It's like there are dishes in the sink and that pisses me off.
Mhm.
that can be a lot more difficult to have that conversation. And it can just be easier in the short term to be like, I'm not even gonna bring this up. It's not a big deal. You should just know that that bothers me, right? We create all these stories. Well, that the dishes in the sink represents a problem, an obstacle, an opportunity for growth. For some reason or another, it may be important to you to not have dishes in the sink. It doesn't really matter why. What matters is that you look into it personally, internally, and decide, is this something that's really important to me? Does it really matter to me that there's not dishes in the sink? Okay, if you really don't care, move forward, whatever, if you can really let it go. If it's something that, like you said a few episodes ago, bothers you for more than 2 minutes, probably worth addressing.
Yeah.
But it's not about the dishes. I think it's about being able to express your needs to your partner in a neutral way, not blame, using I language like, hey, it's really hard for me to relax when I feel like the house is messy. And one thing that makes me feel like the house is messy is that there's dishes in the sink. Would it be okay if you put your dishes in the dishwasher after you ate? Like, that would be really helpful for me in being able to relax so we can like spend our evening together. So it's all like very neutral language. It's like a us versus the problem, inviting your partner in to address this issue with you. But once you work through those things, it's not just hunky dory and you're never going to have problems again. It's like next level, and next level's hard. And that's where I think I've struggled in past relationships is it was easier for me to just continue to get pissed off about the dishes and not ever use my voice about it, but it's a lot harder. Like, oh, we worked through all that. Now what is irking me? Because we're showing up as our more like authentic and raw selves, and we're getting at with our partners, we're allowing them into deeper levels of who we are. And that means there's a lot deeper problems here. So now the things that we're having discussions about, the things we're being really open about, are a lot more raw. I told you the other day, sometimes I feel like I'm walking around with all my nerves on the outside of my body. Like, I feel like we're both doing that. We just like bump into each other, and it can be like super painful when we have like some kind of discussion or disagreement, or where we have different viewpoints on things, because we're so vulnerable, and it can just be so painful to have some of these discussions when it's not about dishes anymore. It's much deeper stuff. But I found that the depth of relationship that we have now is so much more fulfilling. The love that I had for you initially in the relationship was exciting and thrilling, and there were butterflies, and I was just really interested in learning this new strange person. Now I love and know this strange person, but there's like this depth of I really feel like I get to see parts of your soul, which is so fulfilling. And it's a really powerful bond that I think, I have no doubt in my mind, is worth the pain of having to open up on that level.
Yeah, definitely. And I think to bring it all the way back around to what we started this podcast talking about is if you are not actively enhancing your own level of self-awareness and actively pursuing growth in your own life. And let me preface this because I took that the first time I heard that and literally did not allow myself any sort of restorative practice or allow myself to watch TV at night to just chill out. You know, this is not like you should be replacing all of your social media time and all of your TV time and all of these, you know, opportunities where you just want to chill out in whatever way that you do with a YouTube video or an additional course or go get a cert or like any of that. And it's also sometimes when we have a very emotional day, what growth looks like is actually giving yourself massive amounts of compassion for having an emotional day, not sitting in your feelings and trying to find the root of every single feeling you're feeling all at one time every single day. Like that, finding a healthy balance is so important. But in your personal journey, if you become stagnant, especially in relationship, I feel like that's where this can really show up is you start to blame your partner for why you're feeling unfulfilled in your life when actually it's because you haven't taken the time to enhance and grow in your own personal journey. So your spirit, or your soul, if you want to say it that way, is like dying for growth. And you're sitting there, you know, choosing your flesh or choosing your personality or choosing your humanity to numb out that feeling consistently, which is leading you to this unfulfilled, stagnant life, you know? And your relationships will suffer in that way. So ensuring first and foremost that you are understanding that you are a whole person without another person. You are whole. It's great to have a partner, and you do need people in your life. That's why we're meant for connection. We need people in our life to help us continue to grow. But there is this level of personal responsibility that's necessary for there to be a very harmonious union, like you talk about. For there to be a harmonious union, bless you, between yourself and your partner, there's got to be this willingness to really uncover a lot of the things that are causing the tension from your own personal reflection point of view. For example, if anger is a very dominant emotion in you personally, there's some hurt there. It's a cover emotion for hurt, and spending the time being willing to actually find out what you're hurt about and get calm enough to let yourself cry in front of your partner about what's happening is going to be a massive change and shift in your energy and the way that your partner can show up for you.
Really, every relationship provides a mirror. And you mentioned relationships are not just with people, but with the things in our lives. And in every relationship, I feel like we have an arena to recognize and address and practice the things that are our deeper rooted issues. The challenge with an intimate relationship is the closer that you get, you're seeing those deeper issues. But in that is the opportunity for you to grow massively, like because you're opening up on that level with someone else. You can work through a lot of things on your own, but it's very different when you're with someone else, and a lot of times they can see us in some ways more objectively than we can see ourselves because we're so in it. And I think when we start to understand that that's really a gift and every relationship is going to show us who we are, recognize that also in your relationship is your like biggest opportunity to practice being that person that you want to be. I see so many people have these aspirations of like, this is my legacy. Like, this is the kind of person that I want to be. Like, I want to be that person who's there for my friends and, is honest in their word and goes above and beyond and has a higher work ethic and, is always truthful, like all of these things. And yet in their immediate relationship, they don't express those qualities. And I've been that way. Like, I want to be all of these things, but when it comes to you, I just kind of expect you to like just meet me where I'm at, like pick up my slack and like just automatically assuming you're going to do the things that I think are important as if you see the world the same way I do. And it's like, no, if I want to be that person, I actually get to become that person first and foremost with myself, but like my most immediate practice
Mm-hmm.
arena is in our relationship. So if I want to be someone who keeps my word with you, I have an opportunity to start saying, "Hey, I'm going to whatever, prep all the food today or whatever the thing is and then actually keep my word." And then I'm solidifying that kind of person that I want to be. And I'm nurturing our relationship because I'm showing up as my highest self as I develop my highest self within our relationship.
Totally. I don't really know if there's much more to say besides that. I think that's a great way to wrap it up.
And that's how to have a perfect relationship. It's the fact that it will never be perfect and you will always have obstacles to work through, but it's really how you frame them and coming back to each other and finding ways to see each other in a new way again, have fun again. Don't just get caught up in the monotony of day-to-day life, but start to make life an adventure. If you want joy in your relationship, be joy. If you want your partner to be excited to see you, be excited to see them. Give to get. Like it's laying down your life for another person, but when you lay down your life, you receive so much more in return. And there's trust in that, and there's vulnerability in that. And that's scary and painful. And it has to be in the context of a safe relationship. But when you let go and give into that and show up first as the person that you want to be, just watch how your partner meets you there, really, and be open to having those discussions and creating like neutrality in disagreements or conversations, and both recognizing like, hey, the goal of this is for us to have a great relationship. Let's figure out how to make that happen together. But your primary responsibility being not to change that other person to be who you want them to be, but show up as the person that you need and watch them mirror that in return.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is make sure you're having a conversation first about establishing safety and security in the household or in the environment. A lot of the time, when a partner or both partners are feeling a certain way, it's because they don't feel safe enough to express their true emotion. So, ensuring that the environment is safe is going to be the first and honestly best way to have a very authentic conversation and really address some of the deeper, harder questions that come up the longer you're in relationship with somebody.
One way to create that safety is couples therapy. And the reason being, especially if you have like deeply ingrained patterns, you have someone mediating there, and there's a safe space for both people to get to talk. But if that's something that you can't do, or you don't want to start with that, think about that kind of dynamic when you're in a conversation together. Like, hey, can we have a discussion? Like, and then that idea of, just like if there was a therapist there, it's like, how are you feeling about the situation? And that person gets this safe, free space to talk about their feelings. And then, how do you feel about this situation? Same thing. This person gets a safe, free space to talk about their feelings, both uninterrupted, without judgment. And then you can come together and start to find where that middle ground is. Recognizing one thing you said last week is neither of us are right. Both of our feelings are valid. So it's like, instead of one of us being right, it's more about, where do we go from here? Like, now that we both can see the other person's perspective, we have true empathy now. What do we do differently to move forward in a more productive way?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, this has been a really cool series. Honestly, we've had like so many great ideas with relationships. So this one will probably go on for a bit longer. So thank you guys for watching. If you haven't checked out the rest of the series, be sure to do that. We've covered a lot of different topics in the under the umbrella of relationships. And again, doesn't just apply to romantic relationships, really any relationship that you're wanting to deepen, and even your own growth journey. Your greatest arena often is within your relationships. So kind of taking some of these principles and applying them to relationships with family or with friends or with siblings can give you a really great opportunity to kind of kickstart your growth in a lot of areas. So thank you guys for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe, comment below if you're watching on YouTube, share this with your friends, and we look forward to catching you next time on Time Under Tension.